Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome back to another episode to Wealth Wednesday. We got a huge topic that we're going to be hitting on today, something that's going on massively, massive global headlines. And we're going to be talking about Argentina specifically. In the last few weeks, the United States has stepped in with a $20 billion bailout. And there's talks of that number doubling to $40 billion. Yes, $20 billion in the midst of a government shutdown and people potentially going to lose their SNAP benefits. We're bailing out other countries. We're going to get into that today. Definitely want to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. You know, what's really interesting at the same time of this bailout, President Javier Milei, who is the president of Argentina, just won his midterm election on October 26th, I believe it was. So, look, we're going to break all this down today, kind of go piece by piece into segments and getting you guys up to speed of what's going on. But before we do, my guy Jeremiah, how you feeling today? How you doing?
I'm feeling inspired and ready to rumble, man. Let's get to it.
Let's let's get to it. I love it. Look, so if you guys didn't know, Argentina's economy has been in crisis in the past couple years, right? Inflation has been out of control. At one point, their inflation was over 200%, right? And with that being said, Argentina has risked defaulting multiple times on their national debt. And if you guys didn't know, um, with this bailout, if they were to default on this bailout from the United States, this will be their 10th time in a century that Argentina has defaulted on national debt and loans. This is really the background for this bailout. And so essentially, what's going on is the U.S. has stepped in with what's being called as an economic stabilization plan. They're not officially calling it a bailout. They're not using those words, but we know what it is. The first piece is a $20 billion bailout led by the United States Treasury and private investors. Now, this is something that didn't even go to Congress. This was immediately passed by the U.S. Treasury. And specifically, they're looking at this more as a currency swap, which we're going to get into a little later on what that is. Um, I'm going to get Jeremiah in here in a second. Just want to give you guys a little bit more background. Washington is also considering doubling this $20 billion amount to $40 billion, possibly through private funding channels. What else? This story is really set out to say to help Argentina stabilize its currency and rebuild trust with international markets. With all that being said, Jeremiah, when you first seen this, when you first heard this article, what were your thoughts? What were your initial reaction to this?
My initial thought was that Trump is purchasing influence.
Hmm.
You know, if you look at it, you just said that Milei just won his midterm election on the 26th, I believe it was the 25th or the 26th. And so what you see is just Trump going in, or America, right, quote unquote, going in and basically purchasing influence in South America. You know that people lean to, there's a left, there's a right. Milei obviously leans more to the right. And so what you see is sweeping across South America, there is literally politicians now, right, that in like four or five different countries you see where it was a leftist or a little bit more left leaning, you see everyone is going right now. And I kind of sit there and I thought about it and I'm like, why would you, first and foremost, you gave a key stat in the beginning and you said, hey, they've defaulted 9 times. So what is the likelihood that they're going to default that 10th time? It's extremely high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're going to default on that 10th time, what would be the purpose of us doing a currency swap or a bailout for these people? What would be the purpose of that? And I think I mean, for me, I think the purpose is, they're going to default. And it's just like China was doing in Africa, right? You saw China go in and they purchased massive amounts of debt, right, with African countries. And then when they defaulted, they essentially own that country. They own the currency of that country. And so to me, that's what I see this as is, hey, we're getting in position. If they default, great. We basically get to take over Argentina. And, we have a relative position or close to an issue that we have right now, which is Venezuela, much closer position.
And you know what's interesting? If they were to default, who's going to be left holding the bag? the next 4 years, the next 8 years, what party?
You know that. You know who. It's gonna be a Democratic Party, man. And you know, it's funny that you say that because I was looking at some stats, and I mean, over the past 100 years, out of every recession that's happened during that time period, it's been a Republican president. And then what
Hmm.
happens is you get Democrats, and everybody. And here's what's crazy: people say Democrats don't do anything, they don't deliver. I'm not here, like I say. I try to stay in the middle, but I will say this. The economy, and I think we've talked about this several times, the economy always does better under a Democratic president. It's been, just that's just factual statements. And so it's like, hey, we go in here, we mess it up, we're warmongers, we're gonna go in and take over stuff, we mess up stuff, and then the next thing you know, 4 to 8 years later, there's someone left cleaning it up, and then you basically blame them and say they didn't clean it up or they caused it.
Mm,
That's
mm. Yeah, 100%. And look, we've been talking about this. All the stories that we really talk about between China, South America, they're all connected in some type of way. And Jeremiah said a key word at the beginning. He said, United States is trying to gain influence, right? So if you look at what's going on with China, they have their influence in Africa and all throughout Latin
yeah.
America. So United States, they're trying to play chess right now. They're trying to think ahead and kind of, intercede with the business that China is having with Argentina.
Yeah, it just seems like they're a move behind though, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
China's already set this up, and we've talked about this a couple of times before too. China's on a 100, 200 year plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, they're literally planning this out for 200 years. They're sitting strategically making, advances and thinking about what pawns or what pieces on the chessboard do we need to place in certain positions. And I see it, and I see America just, kind of trying to make up the slack. And yes, we have the influence, and we see things moving in a certain direction, but the problem with that is that China's already late. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's inevitable at this point that they become right the number one country in the world, and that's how it goes. I mean, things come in, things go, but uh, America in whole, right? I feel like there's this narrative where we see this and we're like, oh, we're always going to bail out people. We're always going to help
Mm-hmm.
people, right? And in every one of those instances, even with the country that we don't like right now, Venezuela, we've been responsible for going in and basically ransacking their government,
Mm-hmm.
ransacking their economy. So it's, you know, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy? Is China the bad guy? Just a result of decisions we've made. Um, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and what's crazy about this whole thing is America always says that, or now currently, it's America first. But here we are giving 20, possibly $40 billion over
Come on.
to Argentina, right? While SNAP benefits, horrible timing, SNAP benefits are being taken away. And here's what's crazy. Now it's starting to hit home for people that actually voted for Trump because with this
Mm-hmm.
whole thing, you got the whole beef thing, right? I don't know if people
Yeah.
are paying
Yeah.
attention to it, but the
Yeah. Talk about it. Talk
ranchers,
about it.
these ranchers here in America, what happens is beef is gone exorbitant. It's been excessive in the cost of beef, right? And so everybody's complaining about the cost of beef, stuff you buy out of the grocery store. And so Trump says he went and he made a deal basically to buy or purchase Argentine beef and inject that beef into the American market. He
Mm-hmm.
said it would help with the prices for the American public. Well, here's the thing. The beef that he's buying, it's extremely high quality beef, right? It's Kobe. It's like the stuff that you purchase in restaurants. When you go to a 5 star, 4 star, 5 star restaurant, that's the meat you're getting. So it's not actually going to go out in the grocery stores so or have a major change in the beef market, right? Or what comes to your table so you can eat. And so, that's a false narrative. But what it is doing is it's suppressing the efforts of the American ranchers that are actively trying to create, there's a beef shortage and them actively trying to gain that supply and turn it over. And so what I see it as, honestly, it's like, hey, you're going to suppress ranchers here who voted for you, right?
Mm.
And we talked about this, Chris. This is the oldest play in the book. You promise something, right? You get people all excited and they vote for you. And then what do? You pull the rug out from under them. And so I don't know whether to be upset for them or to be like, well, this is what you voted for.
Mm. Mm.
It's tough, man, because it affects the country. And imagine America in a famine or in a food crisis. And that's the direction we're heading. farmers already have had a hard issue, right? We talked about China hasn't purchased soybean, right? Overall, farmers themselves they've been needing subsidies because they haven't been making money, and so they've been suffering. Now you have the ranchers suffering. So the agricultural side of America isn't doing great. So
Mm.
I don't know if America's doing great.
Right. You know what's interesting, and we still got some other points that we want to bring up, and we're gonna continue to like connect the dots for you guys. But clearly, this story is a great representation that this administration does not care about the people's interests. They're more concerned about their own pockets, their own well-being. Fair enough. That's you have the rights to do that. Whatever. That's cool. And I'm not going to sit here and say that if there was a different president in House that they would do the same thing or they wouldn't do the same. I
Yeah,
don't know. They probably would. But this
Hollywood.
is my point of bringing that up is this is why we consistently preach on this platform that you got to take care of yourself and your family.
Yes,
You cannot rely on anybody because we're going to get into more of it. This is a great example of like, yo, look, $20 billion, $40 billion, that's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money.
Do you think they would have cared to send it to Puerto Rico? No. Do you think they would have cared about like, people struggling in America? No.
No, not at all. And I feel like, the money that they put in, they knew that there was going to be a return on that money. I mean, you don't do things, and I say this all the time, and people look at me like I'm crazy, but the whole play with establishing the currency swap and holding money, right? Which which is really crazy for me because the money's totally devalued. We
So
talked
so
about
let's talk about that real quick. I want to bring that up. We can jump into that. So let's kind of
um,
break down how it works, So when
yeah,
this is what the US Treasury is saying. They're saying, "Hey, when people think of bailout, they're thinking of free money." And they said this is not what it is. They're saying that this deal involves a currency swap. All right, so basically what this is they have agreed, the USA and Argentina has agreed that USA will lend dollars to Argentina's central bank while Argentina gives pesos as collateral. So imagine me giving $100 to Jeremiah, 100 Chris dollars to Jeremiah. Jeremiah gives me 100 Jeremiah dollars, and I'm going to hold this as collateral. Now, why doesn't this make sense, Jeremiah?
because the value of my money isn't worth anything. It's consistently slipping. And even though the Chris dollar, right, is maybe not as strong as it once was,
Mhm.
it was still basically the reserve currency for the entire world. You could always buy something with a dollar, right? And even though that's changing a little bit, it doesn't make sense to put a 1 to 1, right? Or even if I gave you 200 to your $1, my
Mhm.
money's slipping so rapidly, it doesn't make sense that I'm holding that money unless there was an active plan, right? To
Mhm.
do something with that money, or I could somehow increase the value of that money.
So this is the next part that we want to continue to connect the dots. So the head of U.S. Treasury is Scott Bessent, or is
Hmm.
that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Scott Bessent, very smart individual. You can probably credit to him for pulling this whole deal together.
sure.
But if you look at his history of who he's worked with in different organizations he's worked with professionally, he has ties to other major organizations that have major positions in Argentine bonds that were purchased back in 2020 and 2021. So just like what Jeremiah is saying right now, if the currency is slipping, if inflation is crazy, if the economy is not good in the country, and your homies are like, "Yo, what's up? Like, what can you do about us losing money?" What do you think you're gonna do? You guys following along a little bit? Like, hey, you're gonna put in some motion to help the people you work with, major
Yeah.
investors, make some of their money back. And it's crazy because when President Milei won the midterm election, the first thing that Donald Trump said was the U.S. made a lot of money in this deal. So clearly, there's some alternative motive there and some motives that maybe people are not seeing there. And a lot of people are benefiting from um, this quote unquote bailout.
But it's not the American people, and
Correct.
that's the thing. How many people were in position to actually take advantage of those Argentine bonds in 2020 or 2021? How many people were in position to purchase some before this announcement was made? I mean, all of this stuff it's all orchestrated. And like you said, Vesid is the brain behind all this. He's an extremely intelligent person. Trump's not smart enough to come up with this stuff. And people can say, you know, he's a businessman or this or that. All of his businesses have all but failed, and that's a factual statement. You can go look that up. But Bessick is an extremely smart person that understands math, understands how to build out investments, understands risk, leverage, and so you can see his hands all over this, right? And what makes
Mhm.
sense for him, uh, people that he's worked for or worked with, and then Trump himself, right? If I enrich those people, then even when I'm out of office, that's the people I want to hang out with, or that's the group or the center of influence that I want to be in. It's with those people. I could care less about the standard American person. And so I think that as Americans, number one, we need to get much, much better with being able to do like a critical analysis. You see how we just put the lines and put everything together? You have to read and be able to process information. And I was reading something
Yep.
the other day on the Atlantic. I think it was on Monday, and Atlantic is a paper, and they were writing about how America's moving toward being an illiterate nation,
Mm.
and so we don't read and we don't learn how to critically think and critically process information, so we can't tie things together, right? And so what we have is our children. They can't understand things, even if you put it in a book or even if you put it in a newspaper, on the internet, wherever, right? They can't even read it. And they couldn't understand what it means to read it. And so what that does is it makes people easier to be manipulated. And we
Mm-hmm.
see that happening every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Manipulation everywhere. And even if you present facts to people, they don't know what the facts mean. And so they just believe what they feel.
Yeah, and look, that's another interesting point that we talk about a lot, how there's other countries that are doing things at a very high level, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
India, whether it's China, they
Yeah.
recently announced that, hey, I think they passed a law saying that if you are an influencer talking about a specific topic, you need to have some type of certification degree in that topic, right? So a lot of other countries are not playing around. If you look at Silicon Valley, a lot of these tech startups, where is the owners from?
They're either India or Asia, yeah, or
Yeah,
China. It's likely.
yeah.
Yeah. Or
You would
Korean.
think, correct, correct.
No, no. Go ahead. My bad.
No, no, no. You good, you good. I mean, look, you
I
got
was just gonna
other
say, I mean,
people coming.
look at the visas. We tried to stop that essentially. We're trying to inject. Here's the funniest thing. We said no to DEI. We said no to affirmative action. But on the other side, we try to stop visas from foreign people that are intelligent coming over here because they quote unquote take our jobs. So
Mhm.
it's a backwards affirmative action, right? For Americans, right? We keep people out, and so we can place ourselves in those positions. But I don't know if we have the brains to contend with these people because, like you said, from a very young age, they're studying and their focus is actually being successful. Ours is, I don't know what ours is.
How to look cute.
Yes,
You feel
yes, that's it.
me? Gotta look good. We gonna look good.
Yep.
That's one thing about us. We gonna look good.
Don't got nothing in your head, but you look good. So, yeah,
uh, Speaking about looking good, Javier Milei, he won his midterm election, as we spoke
yeah.
about multiple times, giving him more control in Congress. If you guys don't remember, by the way, as there is a video that I seen that came out about 2 weeks ago. My man's was at like a rock concert singing. Like, I don't know if you've seen that, but the dude was like he was on stage singing. Like he
Yeah.
was a rock artist. I'm like, this guy is crazy. But anyways, if you guys remember when he first became president, he had the whole chainsaw situation talking about, hey, we're gonna cut government spending, cut red tape, bring free market reforms to Argentina. Now he did mention like since then he's had limited power to push some of those agendas, but with this midterm election, he feels like this is going to change a lot. It's also pretty funny. Before the midterm election, Trump mentioned like, "Yo, if he doesn't get elected, we're not messing with Argentina, but if he does, we'll be there to support." So look, we already knew with him saying that, they already knew what the plan was. This is all happening by design.
Yeah, I don't think people really sit back and understood that as well. Brazil, we talked about Bolivia, right? We're looking at Chile, also just recently elected a right,
Yeah.
more right-leaning government. Colombia, not as much, right? Peru has been in that direction. And so what you see is you start to see elections that seemingly are being controlled, right?
Mm.
And that control, for me, is coming from us, right? It's coming from America. It's like this stuff was orchestrated. You sat down and had a conversation and said, we're going to plan to do this. As a matter of fact, I have to look it up, but I could have sworn that Trump met with like Bukele and met with like some of the Central American and South American leaders. I had to go back and look that up. Don't quote me on that. But I
I
believe that
feel like he did, and I feel
I
like they
believe they
met in
had a meeting.
Texas.
Yeah, I think they had a meeting. And so this stuff's all orchestrated. And so they planned it out. Did Trump plan it out by? No, he didn't. There's people around him though that are very intelligent, and so things are moving, things are working. But the question is America actually being put first? And do you feel right now the
Mm.
hope? And for this is for the people, and I actually want to hear about this in the comments. For the people that actually voted for Trump, go back to November. Do you remember the hope and the feeling of joy that you had? Do you still feel that way right now?
Good
I think
point.
that's a good question for you. Do you still feel that way? Do you still think America's doing great? Jobs are being cut every single day. Thousands of jobs are being cut every single day. The people that need the most help in this nation can't receive any help. We've cut the Department of Education, Department of Transportation. FAA doesn't have people to work. TSA, if you're going to the airport, they don't have people that are working because they're not getting paid. So I asked the question, is America better? Do you think it's better? That's the question.
That's the real
Well, for
question.
Trump,
Yeah, yeah,
it it's better for him,
yeah.
better for his people. They've made billions of dollars, if not
That's
trillions.
that's
So
one
it's
thing.
definitely better for him. Have you?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That look, that's one thing I will give credit to Trump for. He gonna take care of his people.
Oh, for sure. For
He gonna
sure.
take care of his people,
For
man.
sure. For sure. Definite finesser, man. If you want to look up literally in the dictionary in Webster's, if it was finesser, his face should be in there. He is
Yeah,
he is number one. I have to give him that.
yeah, 100%. So I want to, as we start to wrap up this conversation, I want to quickly talk about um this relationship that United States is planning to build with Argentina and how that relates to AI.
Hmm. That's a good question. I put up something the other day on Facebook. I put up a post, and what it had was the five tiers of AI infrastructure, the five tiers right necessary to build out a successful AI industry. Tier zero was energy. Now, Argentina is a pretty flat country. It has some mountains on the back end, but the majority of the country is actually flat. That's why they do so much with beef, right? They have a lot of plains, very flat land. What does that mean? What it means is they have the space to do wind and solar energy that's necessary, right? Or even nuclear if they had to create data centers, right? To create the backbone of what it is to actually have AI. And what's really good about it is, and I'm sure America, we've thought about this with this default is America's in the northern hemisphere, and right, we're going toward winter now, right? And so the sun is not as potent, you don't get as much charge time. These are things, right? But if we have a stake or we own a major part in Argentina, what ends up happening is our winter is their summer.
Hmm.
And so what you do is you create an AI infrastructure that's much more robust, right? Year-round actual charging. You can cross-set that, bring that energy from there to here. So you have to start to think about what is the bigger play? And the bigger
Hmm.
play is AI is not going anywhere. You'll start to see companies, you'll start to see Nvidia, you'll start to see AMD, you'll start to see TSMC, you'll start to see these very large AI structured companies start to build in Argentina once as our stake grows and we get more of a hand deeper into their economy, you'll start to see more companies start to go down there as well.
Yep, 100%. Good point. Um, yeah, look, we want to know your thoughts and opinions about this story. It's interesting. There were some polls that came out about this bailout, and over half of Americans disapproved of this bailout, saying that domestic issues should come first. That's what the polls are saying. That's what the people are saying. We want to know what you think and what you're saying about the situation. Is it good? Is it bad? Do you agree with it? Is there something that we missed in here? Again, like we always try to do, is bring you guys the facts to whatever stories that we're talking about. But let us know down below. Jeremiah, before we get out of here, phenomenal conversation. Any last thoughts or comments?
No, I don't have any. I just, super appreciative of everyone that's been following us as they increase the views and everything. We're always appreciative. And I would just tell people, hey, if you like this conversation and maybe this gets you thinking and it might get other people thinking, share it with a friend.
Share with a friend. Yep. Even if you don't like it, leave a comment down below. Send us an email.
Yep.
Let's chop it up. We're here
Yep.
for it. It's the Light and Wealth family. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace, guys.